Sometimes love doesn't arrive the way you expect it. It doesn't knock politely or wait for the perfect moment. Sometimes it barges into your world at 2 a.m. when your so-called platonic best friend since high school is sprawled on your couch, hoodie half-zipped, one leg dangling off the edge, and your pulse forgets its own rhythm. This is a story about temptation, about the slow erosion of certainties, about the terrifying beauty of realizing you've been falling for someone who was never supposed to be more than family. But life has a way of rewriting its own rules. And what began with a stolen glance turned into something neither of us could name, let alone deny. This is our love story. The first time it happened, I wasn't looking for trouble. At least not consciously. When I moved back to Portland after 4 years in Seattle, I promised myself it would be simple. Just a spare room in Mia's loft, a shared coffee pot, and 2 women who'd known each other since braces and bad perms. Nothing more. She was everything you'd expect from the word best friend on a group chat. Dry humor, chronically early to everything, and perpetually convinced that every problem could be solved with a spreadsheet. But Mia also happened to be 5'9" with storm cloud eyes that shifted from gray to green depending on the light, auburn hair that fell in reckless waves when she forgot to tie it back, and a laugh that started low in her chest and ended like a secret you weren't supposed to hear. It was bad enough that I noticed, worse that I kept noticing. Every time she came back from her morning run, cheeks flushed and ponytail swinging, I'd have to remind myself to keep my eyes on my laptop. Every time she padded around the apartment in mismatched socks and an oversized flannel, my flannel stolen months ago, I'd feel a wave of something I had no right to feel. Because Mia was straight. The kind of straight that didn't leave much up for debate. She dated men with quiet intensity. Architects, baristas, that one guy who restored vintage motorcycles. They came over often, sometimes too often. I'd hear the murmur of voices through the thin wall, the soft click of the front door at dawn, the rustle of sheets that weren't mine. Meanwhile, I'd bury my face in a pillow and remind myself that she wasn't mine. She could never be mine, or so I thought. That night, it was past midnight when I wandered into the kitchen for tea. The loft was dim, lit only by the amber glow of the string lights Mia insisted on keeping up year-round. And there, sprawled on the couch like a study in careless grace, was Mia. She'd fallen asleep mid-Netflix binge, head tilted against the armrest, lips parted, one arm flung over the back of the couch while the other clutched a half-empty mug of chamomile. A throw blanket was tangled around her waist. Her hoodie had ridden up to reveal a sliver of pale stomach, and her leggings had shifted just enough to make my breath catch in my throat. For a second, I just froze. I knew I should look away. I knew this wasn't mine to see. But in that stillness, with the soft sound of her breathing filling the room, I was captivated. It wasn't just the sight of her. It was the vulnerability. Mia, the unflappable, always 3 steps ahead woman everyone leaned on, was unguarded here. Just a girl in the glow of fairy lights, dreaming about who knew what. Skin kissed by shadows and warmth. My pulse hammered in my ears. Stop staring, I whispered to myself, but my feet stayed rooted to the floor. There was something magnetic about her, something that made it impossible to move. And before I could scold myself again, Mia stirred. Her eyes blinked open, hazy with sleep. She squinted toward me, voice low and rough. "Lena, what are you doing up?" I nearly dropped the mug in my hand. "Tea," I stammered, my throat suddenly dry. "You fell asleep out here." Mia groaned softly, rubbing her eyes. She stretched in a lazy arc, her hoodie tugging higher before she tugged it back down with a laugh. Netflix 1, Mia 0. The smile she gave me wasn't the polished grin she wore at work or with her dates. This one was softer, half asleep, disarmed. And standing there in the quiet glow of the lights, I realized how badly I wanted to touch her, just to know if the warmth I felt from here would be the same up close. But I couldn't. I wouldn't. So, I tore my gaze away, muttered something about needing to get back to bed, and retreated into the safety of my room. It should have ended there. A normal night, a normal interaction, but it didn't. Because after that, I couldn't not notice. The way her towel hung low on her hips when she walked out of the shower, steam curling around her like she was some figure out of a dream. The way she lounged in tank tops during heat waves, legs stretched across the couch as though she owned the world. And maybe she did. And the worst part, the way she teased me. Not cruelly, not even intentionally, but the little nudges, the inside jokes, the mock challenges about who could fold laundry faster. And every time her shoulder brushed mine, every time her laughter spilled too close, a spark ignited in me that I tried desperately to smother. Late at night, when the loft was quiet, I replayed moments in my head. Her smile, the way her eyes lingered a second too long, the sound of her voice saying my name like it belonged to her. I started wondering if maybe, just maybe, Mia wasn't as straight as I thought. One Sunday morning, the tension nearly broke me. Mia was in the kitchen making French toast, humming off-key to some indie song on her phone. She wore a cropped sweatshirt and bike shorts, hair damp from a shower, skin smelling faintly of eucalyptus. "Morning, chef," I said, trying to sound casual. She flashed me that grin, spatula in hand. "Morning, roommate. Hope you're hungry. I made enough for a brunch cult." I sat at the counter, watching her flip bread with ease. My eyes betrayed me, tracing the curve of her waist, the slope of her shoulders. She caught me staring. "What?" she asked, eyebrow raised, playful. I flushed. "Nothing. Just didn't know you could cook." "Surprise," she said, sliding a plate toward me. "I contain multitudes." She leaned closer to hand me the syrup, and for a heartbeat our faces were inches apart, her eyes locked onto mine, and the air between us thickened. I looked away first, mumbling, "Thanks." But all morning my mind replayed that moment. The closeness, the way her gaze lingered just a little too long. Maybe I was imagining it. Maybe not. All I knew was that something inside me had shifted. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, heart pounding with restless thoughts. I shouldn't feel this way. She was my best friend, straight. But the truth I couldn't ignore was this. I was falling for Mia. And if I wasn't careful, it was going to break me. Days after that morning in the kitchen, I couldn't shake the memory of Mia's eyes on mine. It wasn't just a look. It was a pause. A moment that stretched too long to be accidental, too warm to be meaningless. I told myself I was imagining things, wishful thinking probably. But then came the little things. Subtle at first, a hand on my lower back when she passed behind me in the hallway, a grin that flickered when our knees brushed on the couch, the way she'd lean a little too close when showing me something on her phone, her breath warm against my ear, and each time I'd walk away with my chest tight and my thoughts tangled, wondering if I was reading too much into it, or if she knew exactly what she was doing. One Thursday evening, we were sprawled in the living room, a box of Thai takeout between us, controllers in our hands for a co-op game we'd been obsessed with since college. Mia, of course, was trash-talking like it was her job. "Come on, Lena, you're not even trying," she said, laughing as her character carried mine through a boss fight. "You call that a strategy?" "Shut up," I muttered, trying to focus. "Some of us play fair." "Oh, is that what we're calling dying now?" She leaned closer, her arm brushing mine as she tilted her head toward the screen. Her laugh rang out again, warm and unguarded. And suddenly it wasn't about the game anymore. I couldn't focus. Not with her body heat radiating against me. Not with the faint scent of her shampoo drifting into my lungs. "You're distracted," Mia teased, smirking. "What's going on in that head of yours?" "You. Always you." Instead, I said, "Just tired." She gave me a look I couldn't read, then nudged me with her elbow. "Don't fall asleep on me now. You owe me a rematch." The night ended with me losing again, both in the game and in my silent battle to keep my feelings buried. Saturday came, and Mia suggested we grab drinks at the Hollow, the dive bar near the river with the busted neon sign and the best jukebox in town. It was crowded, music pulsing, people packed shoulder to shoulder. Mia thrived in it. She was a natural in loud spaces, cracking jokes with bartenders, her laughter cutting through the noise. I tried to keep up, but watching her flirt effortlessly with a guy at the bar, some tall graphic designer with a man bun, twisted something inside me. She leaned against him, giggling at everything he said, her hand brushing his arm, and he didn't pull away. I excused myself to the bathroom, gripping the sink as I stared at my reflection. This is what you signed up for, I reminded myself. She's straight. She can do whatever she wants, and you just get to watch. But when I returned, Mia surprised me. She ditched the guy and was scanning the crowd, looking unsettled. When her eyes landed on me, she relaxed. There you are, she said, voice softer than the music. I thought you bailed. I wouldn't, I said, and meant it more than she knew. We ended up in a corner booth, the noise fading into a dull roar. Mia was quieter now, picking at the label on her beer bottle. That guy was boring, she said finally. Kept Tal. We ended up in a corner booth, the noise fading into a dull roar. Mia was quieter now, picking at the label on her beer bottle. That guy was boring, she said finally. Kept talking about his sourdough starter like it was his child. I laughed, the tension in my chest easing. Tragic. She looked at me then, really looked, and something in her expression shifted. You okay? She asked. You've been weird all night. I'm fine, I lied. She didn't buy it. Mia never did. She reached across the table, her fingers brushing mine. Lena. The way she said my name, like it was a question and an answer at the same time, made my heart stutter. I pulled my hand back too fast. I'm just tired, I said again, weaker this time. She didn't push. But she didn't look away either. The shift happened slowly, then all at once. It started with the little things. Mia stopping by my room to borrow a hoodie and lingering too long. The way she'd fall asleep on the couch during movie nights, her head eventually finding my shoulder. The way she stopped bringing dates home. Then came the night everything cracked open. It was a Tuesday, raining hard enough to rattle the windows. We'd ordered pizza and opened a bottle of wine, the kind of night that felt like a pause in the world. Mia was tipsy, laughing at something stupid I'd said, her cheeks flushed. We were on the floor, backs against the couch, the pizza box abandoned between us. You know what I love about you? She said suddenly, her voice softer than the rain. I swallowed. What? You never make me feel like I have to be on. She turned to face me, knees pulled to her chest. With everyone else, it's like performance. But with you, I can just be. My heart was a trapped bird. You're easy to be around, I managed. She smiled, but it was different this time, vulnerable. Lena, she said again, and this time it wasn't a question. I don't know who moved first. Maybe it was both of us. 1 second we were inches apart. The next her hand was on my cheek, thumb brushing my jaw, and her lips were on mine. Soft, hesitant, then not. The kiss tasted like wine and rain in every moment I'd tried to bury. When we pulled apart, her eyes were wide, searching mine. I'm sorry, she whispered. I don't know what that was. Don't be, I said, my voice shaking. Please don't be. She didn't move away. Instead, she leaned her forehead against mine, breathing hard. I've been trying not to, she admitted. For months. I thought if I ignored it, it would go away. But it didn't, I laughed, a broken sound. Same. We stayed like that for a long time, the rain our only witness. Eventually, she pulled back, eyes glistening. I don't know what this means, she said. I've never, not with a woman. But I know I don't want to lose you. You won't, I promised, and meant it with everything I had. The weeks that followed were a slow unraveling. We didn't label it. We didn't need to. There were mornings where I'd wake up to find her in my bed, curled against me like she'd always belonged there. There were nights where we'd talk until dawn, tracing the edges of who we'd been and who we were becoming. There were moments of panic, Mia's mostly, when she'd pull away, terrified of what this meant for her identity, her family, her life. But she always came back, and I was always waiting. One night, months later, we were on the roof of the loft, wrapped in a blanket, the city lights flickering below us. Mia rested her head on my shoulder, her fingers laced with mine. I used to think love was supposed to be simple, she said quietly. Boy meets girl check boxes, but this... She squeezed my hand. This is messy and terrifying and the best thing I've ever done. I kissed the top of her head. Worth the fall? She looked up at me, eyes soft. Every second. Sometimes love doesn't arrive the way you expect it. Sometimes it's been there all along, waiting for you to catch up. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it barges in at 2 a.m. and refuses to leave. The salt-stung air of Seaside, Oregon, clung to everything in late summer. My hair, my clothes, the cracked vinyl of the diner booth where I sat nursing a milkshake. Across from me, Noah laughed, his voice cutting through the hum of the jukebox and the clatter of plates. He was telling some story about the fishing boat he'd crewed on last week, his hands animated, painting the air with the chaos of a rogue wave. His dark curls were still damp from the ocean, and his flannel shirt was rolled to the elbows, revealing sun-browned forearms. I tried to focus on his words, but my eyes kept drifting to the way his mouth curved when he grinned, the way his laugh seemed to pull the whole room into his orbit. Elliot, you with me? Noah's voice snapped me back. He leaned forward, elbows on the table, his hazel eyes glinting with mischief. Are you zoning out again? Yeah, I'm here, I said, forcing a smile. My voice sounded thin like it always did when I was lying to him. I stirred the milkshake, the ice clinking against the glass. Just tired. He tilted his head, studying me. You sure? You've been... I don't know. Off lately, I shrugged, my heart kicking up a notch. Noah noticed too much. Always had. It was one of the things that made him impossible to ignore, and one of the things that made this so dangerous. We'd been friends since we were kids. Growing up in this sleepy coastal town where everyone knew everyone else's business, Noah was the golden boy. Charming, fearless, the guy who could talk his way out of anything and make you feel like you were part of the adventure. I was the quiet one, the kid who preferred sketching in the margins of notebooks to chasing waves or crashing parties. Somehow we'd stuck together, inseparable through high school and now at 22, sharing a cramped beach house Noah's uncle rented us for cheap. It was supposed to be temporary, just a summer thing while I figured out art school applications and Noah saved up for his next big plan. But summer was bleeding into fall and I was starting to realize temporary wasn't a word that applied to how I felt about him. It started small. The way he'd sling an arm around my shoulders when we walked the boardwalk, his fingers brushing the back of my neck. The way he'd crash on my bed after late-night bonfires, claiming the couch was lumpy as hell, his breath warm against my pillow. The way he'd look at me sometimes, his eyes lingering a beat too long, like he was trying to say something he didn't know how to. I told myself it was nothing. Noah was straight. Everyone knew it. He'd dated half the girls in Seaside, waitresses, lifeguards, the barista at Tide's End Coffee who still blushed when he walked in. He was the guy who flirted like it was second nature, who made everyone feel like they were the only one in the room. It was just who he was. It didn't mean anything. But God, I wanted it to. The night it started to unravel was in late August, at a beach party thrown by some of Noah's fishing buddies. The bonfire roared, casting shadows on the sand, and the air was thick with the smell of smoke and cheap beer. I hung back, leaning against a driftwood log, watching Noah in his element. He was barefoot, jeans rolled up, a beer in one hand as he told a story to a circle of people, his laughter carrying over the crash of the waves. A girl, Clara I think her name was, stood too close, her hand resting on his arm as she laughed at something he said. Her blonde hair caught the firelight, and the way Noah grinned back at her made my stomach twist. I hated it. Hated the jealousy that clawed at me, hated how it made me feel small and stupid. Noah wasn't mine. He never would be. I drained my beer and slipped away, heading down the beach where the noise faded and the ocean stretched out, dark and endless. Hey, Eli? Noah's voice cut through the dark. I turned to see him jogging toward me, his silhouette framed by the distant glow of the fire. Thought I lost you, I forced a laugh. Just needed a break from the chaos. He stopped beside me, close enough that I could smell the salt and smoke on him. You good? he asked, his voice softer now, the party noise a faint hum behind us. Yeah, I lied. His eyes searched mine, and for a moment, I thought he saw right through me. There was something in his gaze, something careful, like he was holding back. You've been weird all night, he said, kicking at the sand. What's up? Nothing, I said too quickly, just not in a party mood. He didn't buy it. I could tell by the way his brow furrowed, the way he stepped closer, his shoulder brushing mine. You know you can tell me, right? Whatever it is, my throat tightened. I wanted to tell him. God, I wanted to spill it all. How every touch, every look, every stupid joke he made lit me up inside. How I was drowning in him and didn't know how to swim. But I couldn't. Not when he was standing there, all easy confidence and straight boy charm, with Clara probably waiting for him back at the fire. I'm fine, I said, turning to stare at the waves. Go back to the party, he didn't move. For a long moment we just stood there, the ocean roaring in my ears, my heart pounding so loud I was sure he could hear it. Then he sighed, his voice low. Sometimes I feel like, I don't know, like everyone's got this idea of who I'm supposed to be, and I just go along with it. I glanced at him, startled. His eyes were fixed on the horizon, his jaw tight. What do you mean? He shrugged, but it wasn't casual. The guy who's always up for anything. The guy who's got it all figured out. But sometimes, it doesn't feel like me. My chest ached. Was he saying what I thought he was? I wanted to ask, to push, to reach out and pull the truth from him. But before I could, he laughed, the sound forced. Ignore me. Too much beer, probably. But it wasn't the beer. I knew it wasn't. And as he walked back to the party, I stood there, the weight of his words sinking into me like stones. The weeks that followed were torture. Noah was everywhere, sprawling across the couch in our beach house, stealing fries off my plate at the diner, dragging me to bonfires or late-night drives along the coast. And he was closer than ever. Not just physically, though there was that. His hand lingering on my back when he passed me in the kitchen, his knee pressed against mine under the table, his head resting on my shoulder during movie nights, his breath warm against my neck. It was the way he looked at me, too, like he was seeing something new and wasn't sure what to do with it. Nights, his breath warm against my neck. It was the way he looked at me, too, like he was seeing something new and wasn't sure what to do with it. I was losing it. Every touch, every glance, chipped away at the walls I'd built. I'd lie awake in my room, the sound of the ocean outside my window, replaying the way his fingers had brushed mine when we reached for the same popcorn bowl, the way his laugh had softened when he caught me staring. I told myself it was nothing, that I was reading into things, but my heart didn't believe me. The breaking point came on a stormy October night. We'd planned a quiet evening in, just the two of us, holed up in the beach house while rain lashed the windows. Noah had picked some old action movie, and we were sprawled on the couch, a bowl of popcorn between us, the room lit only by the flickering TV. Halfway through, Noah stretched out, kicking his legs across my lap like it was the most natural thing in the world. Comfy? I teased, trying to keep my voice steady even as my pulse raced. Very, he said, grinning. His feet pressed against my side, his warmth seeping through my jeans. I tried to focus on the movie, but all I could feel was him. The weight of his legs, the casual intimacy of it all. At one point he shifted, and his hand landed on mine on the couch. Neither of us moved. Our fingers brushed, barely touching, but it was enough to send a jolt through me. The air felt charged, like the storm outside had slipped into the room. I wanted to move, to lace my fingers with his, to finally stop pretending. But I didn't. I couldn't. Noah yawned, breaking the spell, and pulled his hand away. Man, I'm beat, he said, oblivious. Or maybe not. The moment passed, but the ache it left behind didn't. By November, the tension was unbearable. The beach house felt too small, the air thick with everything we weren't saying. Noah was bolder now, leaning against me on the couch, tugging me into playful wrestling matches that left us breathless and too close, complaining when I sat too far away. Every touch was a spark, every look a question neither of us dared to answer. It all came to a head at a bar on the edge of town, one of those divey places with sticky floors and a jukebox that only played Springsteen. Noah was in his element, charming the bartender, high-fiving locals, pulling everyone into his orbit. I stayed by the wall, nursing a whiskey, watching him. And then she showed up. Lila, a girl he'd dated on and off last summer. She was all smiles and confidence, her hand on his arm, her laughter bright as she leaned in close. Jealousy hit me like a wave. I hated it, hated myself for it. I slipped outside, the cold night air biting my skin as I leaned against the railing of the bar's back porch. The ocean was a distant roar, the stars hidden by clouds. Get it together, Elliot, I told myself. He's not yours. He never was. Hey. Noah's voice made me jump. He stood in the doorway, his jacket half zipped, his hair mussed from the wind. You okay? Yeah, I lied, forcing a smile. Just needed air. He stepped closer, his eyes searching mine. You left kind of fast. Thought maybe... He trailed off, shaking his head. Never mind. Thought what? I pressed, my voice sharper than I meant. He leaned against the railing beside me, close enough that our shoulders brushed. I don't know. You looked... Upset, I swallowed hard. I'm fine. He didn't believe me. I could see it in the way his eyes lingered, the way his jaw tightened. After a long silence, he sighed. You get me, Eli, more than anyone. The words hit like a punch. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Before I could respond, Lila appeared in the doorway. Noah, you coming back in? She called, her smile bright. He glanced at her, then back at me. For a moment, he looked torn. Then he forced a grin. Yeah, be right there. She disappeared, and he turned to me. You good? Yeah, I said, my voice cracking. He nodded, but his eyes lingered a second longer before he headed back inside. I didn't stay at the bar. I walked home alone, the wind whipping through my jacket, the sound of the ocean drowning out the noise in my head. When Noah came home hours later, I was still awake, lying in bed staring at the ceiling. The door creaked and his footsteps stopped outside my room. Eli? His voice was low, slurred with whiskey. I sat up, my heart in my throat. Noah? You okay? He pushed the door open, his silhouette filling the frame. Can I? He gestured toward my bed. I nodded, scooting over. Yeah, come in. He collapsed beside me, the smell of whiskey and salt clinging to him. For a moment, we just sat there, his shoulder pressed against mine, his breathing uneven. Then he spoke, his voice raw. Do you ever feel like you're living a lie? The question cut through me. Sometimes, I whispered. He turned to me, his eyes glassy, vulnerable in a way I'd never seen. I keep telling myself I'm, the guy everyone thinks I am. But then I look at you and I... He stopped, his voice breaking. My heart slammed against my ribs. Noah. He leaned closer, his face inches from mine, his breath warm against my skin. My eyes dropped to his lips before I could stop myself. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. The rain, the ocean, my pounding heart. Everything. Then he pulled back. I can't, he muttered, shaking his head. I'm sorry. He stumbled out, leaving me alone with a heart that felt like it was shattering. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. His words echoed in my head. I look at you and I... He hadn't finished, but I knew. God, I knew. The days after were agony. The beach house was a minefield. Every glance, every silence loaded with what we wouldn't say. Noah avoided me, grabbing his keys and heading out before I could speak. We moved around each other like ghosts, the easy rhythm of our friendship replaced by something sharp and brittle. One night, I found him on the porch, a beer in hand, staring at the dark ocean. The wind was cold, the waves crashing below. I hesitated in the doorway, my heart pounding. Part of me wanted to run to avoid the storm between us, but I couldn't. Noah, I said softly. He didn't turn, but his shoulders tensed. Hey! I stepped outside, the boards creaking under my feet. We need to talk. He laughed, but it was hollow. About what? You know what? He was quiet for a long moment, then set his beer down. I'm scared, Eli, he said, his voice barely above the wind. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know who I am half the time. But when I'm with you, he looked at me, his eyes raw. It feels right, and that terrifies me. My breath caught. Noah, I'm not ready, he cut in, his voice shaking. I don't know if I'll ever be. But I can't lose you. You won't, I said, my voice steady despite the ache in my chest. I'm not going anywhere. He nodded, but the distance between us felt wider than the ocean. And as we stood there, the rain starting to fall, I knew one thing for sure. I was in love with Noah. And whether he was ready or not, there was no going back. The balcony door creaked open at 2:17 a.m., and Jordan Hale stepped out, barefoot, hoodie half zipped, the city's orange glow catching in the stubble along his jaw. He didn't see me at first. I was tucked in the corner chair, knees drawn up, pretending to read on my phone. He exhaled like the night owed him something, then dropped onto the railing's edge, beer bottle dangling from 2 fingers. Louder. Braver knew it was time, I muttered under my breath, quoting the line he'd scrawled on a sticky note and left on the fridge last week. He'd laughed when I asked what it meant. Nothing. Just words. He heard me anyway. Head tilted. Mind if I join the pity party? I shrugged. Plenty of room. He sat on the cold concrete beside my chair instead of the empty one across from me. Close enough that the heat off his skin cut through the October chill. We didn't speak for a long stretch. Somewhere below, a siren dopplered and vanished. Finally, I said, "We gonna pretend last night didn't happen?" Jordan's shoulders locked. "Which part?" "You know which part." He took a slow pull from the bottle. "I was wasted, Eli. Bullshit." "You were 2 beers in." His laugh came out jagged. 2 beers and a lifetime of pretending. The words hung between us like smoke. I set my phone face down. "You said my name like it hurt. Then you kissed my forehead and told me you were scared of ruining everything. Ring any bells?" Jordan rubbed a hand over his face. "I don't do this, okay? I don't feel things." "Not like that. Like what?" He stared at the skyline, jaw working. "Like I want to crawl out of my own skin and into yours." My pulse stuttered. I'd spent 2 years cataloging the way Jordan moved, loose-hipped swagger in the kitchen at 3 a.m., the way he hummed off-key while folding laundry, the small scar above his left eyebrow from sophomore year when he tried to skateboard down the dorm stairs. I knew the topography of wanting him the way astronomers know constellations. Distant, burning, impossible. I said, "You don't get to drop that and walk away." "I'm not walking." His voice cracked. "I'm standing in quicksand." Silence again, thick enough to choke on. Then he slammed the bottle down so hard foam sloshed over the rim. "You think I don't hate myself for it? I see you laughing at some stupid meme and my chest caves in. I smell your shampoo in the hallway and I can't breathe. I'm 31 years old, Eli. I've dated women. I liked it. I was good at it. And now," he gestured helplessly between us. "Now I don't know what the hell I am." I shifted to the floor, knees brushing his. "You're still Jordan. Still the guy who burns pancakes and quotes The Princess Bride when he's nervous. Still the guy who leaves the porch light on when I work late. Nothing's changed except you're finally saying it out loud." His eyes flicked to mine, stormy and terrified. "What if I say it and it breaks us? Then we glue the pieces back weird and crooked and call it art." A laugh hiccuped out of him, half sob. He reached out, thumb brushing the inside of my wrist like he was testing temperature. "This is insane." "Yeah," I whispered. Insane feels a lot like breathing. He surged forward. No warning, no gentle lead-in. Just his mouth crashing into mine, desperate, clumsy, perfect. Beer and mint and the faint metallic taste of fear. I kissed him back like I'd been starving for years, which I had. My hands fisted in his hoodie. His fingers dug into my scalp. The city disappeared. There was only the scrape of his stubble, the hitch in his breath when my tongue touched his. When we broke apart, foreheads pressed together, he was shaking. "I shouldn't, but you did," I said. "And I'm still here." He kissed me again, slower this time. Learning, apologizing, promising. His palm slid to the nape of my neck, cradling me like something breakable and priceless. I felt the moment he decided to stop running, felt it in the way his shoulders dropped, the way he exhaled my name against my lips like a prayer. Later, when the sky bruised purple with dawn, we stumbled inside. He paused in the hallway, backlit by the kitchen bulb. "Separate rooms?" he asked, voice raw. I shook my head. Not tonight. He followed me to my bed like a man stepping off a cliff. We didn't sleep. We mapped collarbones with fingertips, whispered confessions into the dark. He told me about the first girl he kissed at 14, how sure he'd been. I told him about the boy in 10th grade who held my hand under the bleachers and never spoke to me again. We laughed until it hurt, then kissed until it didn't. Morning found us tangled in sheets, his leg thrown over mine, my fingers tracing the freckles across his shoulder. The apartment smelled like coffee neither of us had made yet. He spoke first, voice gravelly. People are gonna have opinions. Let them. My mom will love you no matter what. And if she doesn't deserve you. He propped himself on an elbow, studying me. You're awfully calm for a guy whose roommate just detonated his entire identity. I've had 2 years to practice calm while wanting to climb you like a tree. A grin cracked his face. Real. Unguarded. The one that made his eyes crinkle. Tree climbing, huh? Shut up and kiss me before I die of embarrassment. He did. Thoroughly. The weeks after were a masterclass in controlled chaos. Jordan swung between euphoria and panic like a pendulum. Some nights he'd cook dinner shirtless, humming our song, some indie track we'd discovered at 2 a.m., and steal kisses over the stove. Others he'd lock himself in the bathroom for an hour, emerging red-eyed and pretending he'd just been showering. I gave him space when he needed it, dragged him close when he didn't. We fought once, viciously over something stupid whose turn it was to buy toilet paper, and ended up laughing hysterically on the kitchen floor because the argument dissolved into him tickling me until I couldn't breathe. He came out to his sister over FaceTime. I listened from the hallway, heart in my throat. When he emerged, eyes glassy but steady, he said, "She asked if you're the one who leaves poetic sticky notes on the fridge." I laughed so hard I cried. We took it slow in public. A brush of knuckles in the movie theater. His pinky hooked through mine on the subway. Baby steps. But at home, the floodgates were open. He'd fall asleep with his head on my chest, murmuring nonsense about constellations. I'd wake to find him watching me, thumb stroking my cheekbone like he couldn't believe I was real. One night in December, snow dusting the balcony railing, he handed me a small box. Inside, a keychain shaped like a tiny balcony door. Engraved on the back, 2:17 a.m. "For the night I stopped pretending," he said. I kissed him until we were breathless, snowflakes melting on our eyelashes. Love, I learned, isn't a lightning strike. It's the slow drip of water wearing stone smooth. It's burnt pancakes and 3 a.m. confessions, and learning how to hold someone who's still learning how to be held. Jordan never became someone else. He just stopped hiding the parts that were already mine. Sometimes late at night, I catch him on the balcony again, barefoot, hoodie half-zipped, city lights in his eyes. He doesn't flinch when I slide my arms around his waist from behind. He leans back into me, solid and warm, and whispers, "Still insane?" "Completely," I say. "Good," he answers. "Sanity's overrated." And I know without a doubt that this messy, luminous, hard-won thing is the only story I ever want to tell.